Welcome to Chelsea's Vocation. Chelsea raised two children on the autism spectrum, Justice and Noey, into adulthood. They're the reason why she can't help but smile when she recognizes autism in another human, especially a child. Chelsea spent almost 2 decades studying this neurotype as a parent professional, learning how to better adapt her own behavior and the environment around autistic children to both encourage and foster their development. She hopes through this podcast that you might better understand how neurotypical people process your neurology if you're autistic, or how to better yourself as someone who values autistic humans and your relationship with them. Chelsea is a lifelong learner and expects you are too. So don't hesitate to reach out to her through social media comments or the contact form on our website with your own insights. If you're coming to this podcast after the first 5 episodes, you may want to go to the show and review one or more of those foundational episodes to know where she's coming from. Either way, we're glad you're here now.
I love that June is Pride and that today, June 18th, is Autistic Pride Day. I love the overlap and symbolism in the LGBTQ plus community and the neurodivergent community. There are rainbow infinity symbols for gender identity expression and neurodiversity. And there's a significant overlap in identities in these groups as well. In April, my youngest, Noey, whose preferred pronouns are they, them, and I, co-presented on the topic of autism and queerness at the Wisconsin Autism Conference. I really wanted to cover this topic for the sake of heteronormative cisgendered parents who, like I was 7 years ago, might be completely unaware of this overlap. So not only was Noey struggling, as all adolescents do, and I think especially neurospicy ones, with the physiological changes of puberty, but Noey was also trying to figure out what it meant to not feel male or female. And as straight cis parents, Pete and I had no idea that was a thing. The way I remember it first coming up was early one morning when Noey was in high school. I typically wake before my kids so I can have my cup of coffee in relative stillness and get my head right for the day. Before I had finished my magic bean water, Noe comes into the kitchen and with their face in the fridge wonders aloud to me whether they belong to one gender queer group or another. It was a think fast moment for me. First, don't overreact to the topic. Then, I had relative assurance that I knew what one of the queer Gen Z terms meant. I figured, given the context, that the other term meant the inverse. With all the nonplussed objectivity I could muster, I less than confidently offered a reply, and so the curiosity began. We've learned a lot as a family since then, and just as we started our autism conference breakout session presentation, I want to set the stage with some statistics. As always, check the episode description for links to research articles and terminology explanations. In a 2002 article, Autism Spectrum Disorder and Gender Dysphoria/Incongruence, a systemic literature review and meta-analysis by Amelia Kalitsunaki and David M. Williams, published in the Journal of Autism and Developmental Disorders, we learn that autistic children are 4 times more likely to be gender dysphoric than non-autistic children. Also, that autistic folks, children and adults, are 2 times more likely than the general population to consider gender reassignment. And about 15% of autistic folks are gender nonconforming, compared to around 2% of the general population. Do I have your attention now? Since Noey is a gender nonconforming adult who indeed struggled with gender dysphoria, I'll ask them to explain these terms first, and then connect back to their own experience. Welcome back to the podcast, Noey.
Hi.
When we talk about gender normative, we're generally referring to the binary gender expressions male and female as assigned at birth. You might hear these shortened to AMAB and AFAB. So what does it mean to be gender nonconforming, Noe?
So people, I think, mistake a lot of the time gender and sex. Sex are your body parts, what you're born with, your chromosomes, and it is what's on your driver's license and birth certificate. It is like male and female. And then there is gender, which is kind of the more societal kind of look at these ideas. I think we associate a lot of things with a gender. Like, I mean, look at the Spanish language. Like, they will literally have libraries and bookshelves, like all gendered. And so being gender nonconforming is, for me, it's identifying with both things of being like, I like race cars, but I also like ballet. Even more so than that, as a kid, I didn't really vibe with the way girls interacted as much. I thought girls, especially in like middle school and high school, took things way more dramatically than I did. Not to toot my own horn or anything. Very much girl drama was foreign to me and I didn't understand it. I couldn't really also relate with the boys because boys were gross at that time too. So it really left me in this field of like, I can't identify as either of these groups. So in my mind, I didn't like this idea that I had to conform to one of these quote unquote groups of male or female. So I didn't conform, hence gender nonconforming.
That is such a great definition. Thank you for clarifying that. I'm a little bit curious, a follow-up question. When you talk about gender, to me, it also kind of sounds like there's sex and then there's gender expression or gender identity, or is gender like separate even from those two issues?
So gender identity is what it sounds like, it's what you identify as. And then gender expression is just like it sounds, how you express that. So you can identify as a male and express a different gender. I think of Harry Styles on the cover of Vogue. Those, oh gosh, that was so many years ago. But he was wearing a dress, and so in that scenario, his gender identity is male. His gender expression is leaning towards a more feminine aspect.
Thank you for clarifying. This is exactly why I'm doing this podcast episode, because these things for me, they get all jumbled up and it's hard for me to tease out because it's not part of my lived experience. Can you then explain what gender dysphoria means and then explain how, like, when and what age that impacted you?
I cannot give you a specific age because parts of me feel like it's been a thing kind of since the dawn of time. I remember I think I was like 6 and I broke down into tears when you told me that I couldn't be a bro and I had to be a sis. And like something died that day. I don't know what did, but it was over for me. So I have that sticking out in my memory. I remember ever since second grade, I loved like boy haircuts way more than um, haircuts for girls and women at that time. And I remember constantly asking you to get a boy haircut. It's definitely been much shorter. I don't think I've ever had my hair longer than shoulder length ever in my life. Somebody described dysphoria to me once, and I think it's very, very accurate as like when you're using your non dominant hand. Nobody is telling you what your dominant hand is, but you know your dominant hand because when you're using your non dominant hand, you feel off. And I kind of feel like I'm in this non dominant body in a sense, where it's just, I feel kind of off. And like, again, nobody pointed a finger at me and said, you're gender nonconforming. This is very much a natural experience. But gender dysphoria is very much uncomfortable. I also remember my first gender euphoric moment as a kid, and it was in middle school. There was a substitute teacher. Back in that day, my fashion was surrounded by t-shirts and sweatpants. I could definitely see her being confused about what I identified as, but she, at the time, I identified as she, her, but she said, he's doing great, or like, he's doing an awesome job. And in that moment, I felt very much like I was weirded out because I knew it wasn't correct in the societal sense, but in my own personal body, it just felt right.
I remember one Christmas getting a gift for you, Noey, and the reaction that you had to this gift showed me as a parent that what you were going through was not a phase. It wasn't something you were doing for attention. You were gender nonconforming, so to speak, or gender dysphoric in the core of your being. And I think that helped me as a parent move forward with this is who Noey is. And part of honoring Noey is honoring this feeling of gender expression.
Yeah.
Noey, can you please explain the significance of preferred pronouns? I know this is a struggle even in our extended family, I should say, not our immediate family. But I mean, for crying out loud, you've had preferred pronouns now for, golly, 6 years, and this is still tough. So tell me about the significance of preferred pronoun, and then let's talk about leaving your dead name behind.
Yeah, so pronouns, I'll admit, I still struggle with. I definitely get my pronouns wrong more than right. Definitely, like, my closest friends, of course, use my correct pronouns, but coworkers, and not because they're mean or anything, it's honestly because it's never been brought up. I am very much a person where I won't say it until someone asks me or I am asked. I know that's bad, but I'm still working on that. My pronouns are they, them. And as a teacher, it's great when like your students use your correct pronouns. It feels really awesome. It just feels great when people use correct pronouns.
I want to tell a little story about when you were going to college. It was orientation day, and the way that the college set it up is they separated the parents from the students. So in the auditorium that me and your dad were in, there was a panel conversation, and there was some faculty members in there, some current students, and an alum or two. And the questions were coming up from the parents in the audience. And you have to keep in mind, this was like 6 years ago. And a parent stood up and said, I might not be as woke as some other parents are, but what's with the pronouns? Which was so precious because when we all came in as parents and students, they had us write down on our name tag our first name and our preferred pronouns. And your dad didn't even know what that meant. Like, he was like looking at me like, what do you mean preferred pronouns? I'm like, you're he, him, just write he, him and keep going. So I'm sure he wasn't the only parent who like was feeling like that. And as we went into the auditorium, all the people on the panel were introducing themselves by their name, their affiliation to the college, and their preferred pronouns. So when this parent asked this question, I'm sure it wasn't just for her. I'm sure it was for more people in the audience. And the folks who wanted to answer just kind of threw their input out as they felt led. So it's not like anyone was called on specifically. But there was this guy from India. That was another cool thing I think about the college that you went to. There was so much diversity. It was so cool. And I thought, like, I am so curious to hear how he processes this as someone from India, where there probably is a whole different understanding of gender identity and gender expression. And he said, I really don't think about it as having anything to do with me. He said, I think using someone's preferred pronouns just helps me to see how they want to be seen. And that's really what's important. I thought that was the best answer ever.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
I remember it was actually at that orientation
Oh
where you
yeah,
first started using they, them
my
pronouns.
name tag, yeah.
Yeah. So when we came back together for lunch and I looked at your name tag, you had officially made your name Noey, which you had done at when you walked the stage for your high school graduation, but I'd never seen you write it that way before, and I'd never seen the pronouns that way before. So it was a shift for all of us. And I remember asking you, like, what's with the pronouns? And you're like, oh, I'm just trying it on. And it became a thing that summer, right? And so we all started trying our best to use them. And to your point, we misgendered you a lot. We use the incorrect pronouns a lot. And you have an older brother who's autistic and has a cognitive disability. And it was really hard for him to wrap his head around that. We put up some visual supports to help him use your pronouns correctly and not use your dead name, use your preferred nickname Noe. And he became like the best pronoun and name person in the whole family because it just became a rule to him. And once he had it, he had it. And then I think within our extended family, he became a really good advocate for you, even when you weren't around. If
Oh
someone
yeah.
said Noel, if someone said she, her, Justice would come in and he would correct them because that was the rule. I just thought that was so cool. But I want you to talk about this concept of a dead name a little bit.
So I go by Noey. Like you said, my dead name was Noel. I never bring it up. People will sometimes ask me, "Oh, is Noey short for something?" And I'll be like, "No." And it's super fun. I feel like your dead name kind of symbolizes you when you were gender dysphoric, and then your name now kind of identifies as you identifying with yourself more. It's not like, oh, take that, parent. It's nothing like that, but it's definitely just identifying with you more. I very much identify with Noe more when I was 6, like in kindergarten. I've always gone by Noe. I remember telling when I was changing my name to that, a lot of people were like, "Oh, I just thought that was your name." So it was fairly easy to change my name.
A big moment for me, which doesn't seem like a big moment. It's a little thing, but for me, symbolically, as a mama, it was a big deal when I got your new Christmas stocking with your name on it, and I got rid of the other one, and that was a moment for me, right? It it was me saying to myself, to my family, that this is who you are, and we respect and honor you and your choices.
Legit.
Because there was a long time before then. I know for sure it took me at least a year to start using your pronouns in your name correctly, consistently. And what
Yeah.
I learned about myself is I had to use your pronouns in your name, even not in your presence. Because if I made the mistake of trying to make other people feel comfortable by using old pronouns and old name, I not only felt like I wasn't being true to who you were, but it was eroding my capability of being consistent with the right pronouns and the right name. So I really started using that with friends. And I think the precious thing is when we all started talking about it, if they misgendered you, again, just in my presence, not with you around, they would feel terrible and they would say, "I'm so sorry." By that time, it didn't bother me. I was so proud of myself for having finally got it. I wanted to give them the grace and the space and the time to do it right. But I think early on for all of us, it was frustrating. Did it feel as frustrating for you? It was kind of a new official identity for you, I think. So it was
Yeah.
just, it was a little
So
abrasive.
I'll be honest, to this day, I still misgender myself sometimes, and I hate it. Like, I hate it, but I'm also like, it's fine, because I've very much grown with the, relationship and idea of a pronoun. I've made a 360 in a sense, because I very much started off with I don't care about pronouns. And probably during college, I was like, I super care about pronouns. And now I'm just back to I don't really care about pronouns. But like in a different sense, as to like, I got things to do. Like, and how I identify is honestly none of your business. Like, but also in a sense, it won't be the end of the world if I've been misgendered. Um, I very much have that mentality with it. And I'm not saying this is everyone's mentality to it. Like I said before, I took major offense sometimes to it, especially when it was like repeated by people that I knew. It definitely hurt a bit, but I think I've just very much grown with that and matured in that sense. But people all over the place are at different journeys, so always use preferred pronouns.
So is there etiquette around asking someone their pronouns? Like if
Honestly, if you just simply ask what are your pronouns, that's all you need to ask. It's not offensive. Honestly, I'm always super happy when somebody asks what are your pronouns and I'm like, "Oh my gosh," because it's like a new conversation starter.
Perfect. Well, I'm glad to know that because I sure did ask a nurse. I was taking a family member to a doctor, and this nurse was definitely gender nonconforming. And so I figured there was probably some different pronouns too. And when I asked, she was so excited. She's like, "Oh, it's never he, him, but it can be she, her, or they, them." You could tell just the excitement on her face, that seen feeling. You can just see it come
Legit.
on. If you're a parent of an autistic human and you're listening to this and you're noticing some gender nonconformity in your kiddo, know that This is not as uncommon in the autistic population as it is in the general population, and there are some reasons for that. There are two more terms that Noey doesn't really identify with, but they've come up for me as I did research as a parent on autism and gender identity. And the two terms are neuroqueer and autigender. So I'm going to link some information from actually autistic queer people.
You are beautiful, and there are 8 billion people on this planet. At least 100 of them love you.
Oh, that's so awesome. All right, Noe, I hope you feel better. I love you to bits and pieces.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Chelsea's Vocation. We hope it was valuable to you. If it was, we'd appreciate you sharing it with someone, reviewing it, and/or rating it. Subscribe to the podcast to be notified when new episodes are published. We wish you the best as you learn, maybe unlearn, and do better for yourself and those around you. Chelsea encourages you to be gentle with yourself, be gracious with others, and be protective of your own and others' dignity. Until next time, take care.